Thank you for checking out our YouTube channel, and don't forget to subscribe and like. And please visit us at barrykibrick.com, where you'll see all the ways that you can become a patron of our mission and help us continue to build a community of seekers who quest for knowledge, information, and most importantly, wisdom.
Today on Between the Lines, a man who changed an entire industry, J.D. Power. Welcome, I'm Barry Kibrick. J.D. Power and Associates played a role in nearly every advance of the automotive industry over the past half-century. Dave Power, along with his family, built an empire based on customer satisfaction from the humble beginnings of his kitchen table. With his book, Power, written by Dave, Sarah Morgans, and Bill Thornes, you'll see how through his efforts and the undying belief that customer satisfaction is the key to success, his vision now has spread throughout all industries around the world.
I'm a writer today because I was a reader when I was 11 years old. And it was...
You do not need to prove your state of happiness to anybody.
Most of these speeches were as much as a month in preparation.
Characters, the heroes in this book, are seekers of truth in a story that involves a lot of corruption.
I don't get a chance to really talk about what's real. And this is the first thing to do.
Dave, it is a pleasure to welcome you to Between the Lines. A thrill having you here, sir.
Barry, I'm excited about being here myself.
Well, you know, it's funny, and my son and I, we just talked about it again. When I told everybody I was having J.D. Power on the show, they all said, "Is that a real person? I thought it was just a company." And I said, "No, it is a real person." So welcome in the flesh again.
Well, thank you. It's about 80% of the population still think it's a phony name.
Now, your company was founded on a very simple premise. The customer is what matters. That's their opinion is what's going to drive everything you do, and their opinion is what matters most. It's not the clients, it's not what the engineers think, it's the customers.
Well, I think that that is true. That's what we started off. I got disgusted with working in Detroit for the major automobile manufacturers and decided to leave. And I got a job out here in California, and that led to me thinking about starting my own company, and that's the way we did it. My wife and I decided we'd make a go at it, and we had 3 children and a 4th on the way, and we operated off the kitchen table, and that's how we got started.
Well, you know, I was so attracted to that because as you met my family in the green room, we're also a family business, not as big as J.D. Power, but we started the same way. And I know your wife, like mine, really offered the backbone, really gave you the courage, because you had to, what really separated you was you weren't doing research for an individual company, because that would be almost an easy step. They would pay you the money, you would do the research. You made a decision to make it for the industry. So you had to risk so much because you didn't quite have clients beforehand. You hoped that what you were doing would get you the clients.
Yes, and I think that we really understood the situation. But I was very fortunate. The company I was working for, McCulloch Corporation, allowed, the general manager he said, "You're crazy going out and doing your own thing." And I said, "Well, my wife agreed to it, so I'm doing it."
Oh, that's how I got to do it. I wouldn't have done it. They said, "You're crazy," the same way. And I said, my wife not only said, my wife insisted I do it.
So he stormed out of the room, my office, and in about 15 minutes, I got a call from the founder, R.P. McCulloch, and he wanted to see me. I had never been upstairs to his office, and I got up there, and he said, I'm not going to try to talk you out of starting your own company. He said, what I'd like to do is be your first customer. And we got an agreement where I would spend 5 days a month on McCulloch operations, and I would get half my salary for 2 years, a 2-year commitment. So that's how things started, and one thing after another built up.
Well, it said that the other thing you had, and I'll read it exactly, J.D. Power and Associates was a success because it was armed with a very powerful tool, the truth.
Yes, and that goes back to my days of reading Shakespeare, to thine own self be true. And I think that that was, he said it was above all, remember that. And I think that's what we lived up to.
It was, well, you even said it yourself, a moral operation. It was a moral duty. You felt that this was, I'll put it this way, a mission to improve an industry that you saw firsthand needed to be improved in all levels, and it wasn't keeping up with the rest of the industry worldwide.
Yes, and it was something that had to be done in a gradual fashion. And what we decided is that we needed to own the data, our own data. We did the survey using the children to do the mailing for us. They were on the living room floor, folding the questionnaires and putting a quarter on the cover letter as an incentive, stuffing the envelopes and putting the stamp on, and we would mail them out and would get the responses in, and my wife tabulated on the kitchen table while the children were napping. And then they go on for another project after we finished the one that we first tried.
Well, they say, though, that the success was your own affability, your own congeniality. You never, even your insistence upon never using this to belittle the companies that ranked low, that was something you would not allow. You were very open. You used the term, it is a business of relationships, but in your case, it wasn't so much whining and dining type of relationships that you found important. It was, again, the truth that was spoken from the customer. You really give the customer the value that really made this change happen.
That's right. We felt that we would tell the truth, and sometimes it was rather critical to them accepting what we had to say. But eventually they found that we were right on, and that's the gratification out of the results over 50 years in the business.
Well, you also, as you were going, I can tell you learned your own lessons. I know that sounds funny at first, but you can tell that because you even realized, because oftentimes there were so many obstacles that you had to face to get around all the gatekeepers, so to speak, all the naysayers, that you really learned that getting around an obstacle is a primary key, not only in business, but in life in general.
Yes. And I think that the staff took on that as a challenge and believed in what we were doing. And were very straightforward, report the results the way we saw it happening and the way the customers were reporting to us. it was not an easy thing at times when back in the late 60s and early 70s, the cars had many, many problems. Today, I think we've seen an improvement of maybe 400 to 500% in the number of product problems.
No, it's
different type of problems as they correct the engine and transmission, and now it's into the electronics.
Yeah, it's definitely, I've experienced even just over the period of times that I've owned cars, how they're more reliable. They just are, and they care more about making you happy, because the competition now too, that's the nice thing, is it's so intense.
Well, we learned from the survey work that we were doing, we were getting a 50% plus response rate. Mailing out a questionnaire with a quarter was enough to get it up over 50%. The Mazda rotary engine survey that we did in 71, 72, really, it was amazing. And we owned the data, and so we made reports and sent them out to the car companies if they wanted to subscribe. We charged them $2,500 in those days, and we had 14 companies subscribe to it. Mazda didn't subscribe to it, and we were couldn't believe it when my wife pointed out in the tabulations that they had a problem with their O-ring. And I said, "What's an O-ring?" And she says, "I don't know, but look at this." And she showed me the tabulations, and 1 out of 5 vehicles, when it reached 30,000 miles or a little bit more, had an O-ring failure. And with that kind of failure, it was early in the game for Mazda, and they had sold 120,000 vehicles in the first 18 months, fastest growth of an import car. And they had all these cars, most of them, 95% of them, without 30,000 miles yet on them. And this was a revelation that they didn't really know about because they didn't subscribe to the study.
Well, see, that's what's interesting, is that, again, when you first started, you see all this resistance, especially from the big three in America, because we've done all the study, we have our own research people, we have all this, and yet they begin to slowly realize that by you being so independent of them and you not at all putting opinion, but literally, as your wife Julie did, look at the data and go forth with it, they began to realize that, wait a minute, this could help us rather than hurt us, because that was their fear. Everyone operates out of fear. Protect the castle, put up the gates, the moat, the whole thing. That began to open up the path.
Absolutely. And that took several years. Decades, I should say.
Now, your mom and dad had an interesting influence on you. And when I was reading it, it reminded me of the influence my mom and dad had on me, because your dad in particular, you were not going to be following in his footsteps in any way. He wasn't going to mentor you in that way. He, though, mentored you in the deep, soulful, spiritual, intellectual way that a man should behave. And I've always found that to be the best thing a dad can do, is not say you've got to do this my way, but instill the values that allowed you to lead your own way.
Yes, I think my dad, who was a school teacher, high school teacher, he put up with a lot of things. He didn't get the promotion that he wanted and so forth. And I couldn't understand why he didn't push it harder. And he says, well, that's the way it is. and I just believe in that I was qualified, but I didn't get the job, and I respected him for that.
Another person that influenced you was a Walter Wriston, and it was his book, The Twilight of Sovereignty. And you can see just by these words how they played a role in your organization. Humanity's most important resource is its intellectual capabilities. And you had to believe that that was the truth. Otherwise, your customer surveys wouldn't mean anything if you didn't believe that they had the intellectual capabilities to know what really was right and wrong for them.
Yes. And I think that Walter Wriston had just retired from Citicorp, and he was talking about what was happening in the world. And the sovereignty of nations was under siege to the new society that we were developing. But it was his thinking on that got me to understand how things were changing.
I had the privilege of meeting your daughter, Mary, in the green room, but your son, Jamie, also J.D. Power, I guess the fourth, right?
Yes.
You're the third, right?
I'm the third.
Okay, this is the fourth. But he says this, and I want to use the exact quote. Your story, the company's story, it's a story about persistence, perseverance, and these are the words I love, about finding cracks, if you will, in the old foundations and working your way in as a weed will. I've always believed that it is through the crack, as the great Leonard Cohen says, that the light gets through. And that's exactly what you did.
Well, yes, it'd have to be that way. There were a lot of cracks.
Besides in the O-ring of the Mazda,
Yes.
am I correct?
Yes. And I'm very delighted to have had this experience over 45 years with my company, and all the associates that we had. They held true to it as well. And we ended up with 3 values. We had a lot of values, but 3 principal values were independence, meaning owning the data allowed us that independence, and integrity, telling the truth, and the third one, third eye as we called it, was impact. Doing the studies was great, but you have to have an impact with the results. And that's what we aim for, is eventually getting an impact. Impact meaning that the companies would change their behavior.
Well, you really succeeded with that when it came to the manufacturing end. And that's when you then turned towards the retail, to the dealerships. And that's when you begin to see another revolution occur, literally. I want to go into that because there's one part that I want to really hit, but I want to just in general first go into that, is that, you literally went to the manufacturing aspect, but retail for cars, they're all connected, aren't they? The manufacturer, it's a Chevy dealership. It's not like, as you say, you go into Walmart and see Chevys, Hondas, and all the different cars there. So it's a very unique situation that you had to pry open again.
Yes, and we formed an association which we called the Super Dealer Roundtable, and we had about 300 to 400 dealers throughout the country meet 4 times a year, and would have an open discussion, and they'd have all the different makes involved in it. And we didn't allow the press to be there or the manufacturers. And boy, did we learn a lot from that. They said what was on their mind, and that helped us, but it also helped them to understand what was going on, that they weren't the only ones feeling the way that they did. Almost all of them felt that they had a problem with the franchise agreement.
You know, and with that in mind, it almost seems that, talk about another crack, there may be a crack about to come. If it hasn't, in fact, I think it has already to some extent, but there may be a time when you will see all the different cars in one lot. It's close nowadays. If you look in many places, car dealers do line up oftentimes down the streets. They know at least that people looking for a car, it's going to drive traffic, so literally up and down. But there may be a time when, I don't want to use the Walmart model or a big supermarket model, but there may come a time when that is how you're going to buy a car. And I think in some places it may already exist, from what I understand.
It's on its way, but I think that the first change came in the 1990s when we started to see auto centers develop and multiple franchises in the auto centers. So that was a move in one direction, but now we have chains of auto centers like AutoNation, and they are now the largest automotive retailer in the United States, and they're maybe around $4 or $5 billion in revenue annually. And I think that that's another situation where the 400 franchises that they have are not run by an independent dealer. They're actually an employee of AutoNation. And so they have a different viewpoint on what their job is. But we see the change is going to keep going on. And another thing that we point out over the years to the manufacturers and the dealers, when you go shopping for a car, you don't want to look at all of the different models of Toyotas. You want to, if it's a Toyota Camry that you're looking at, you want to see the Honda Accord and the other manufacturers' cars. And so you had to go to different dealers in order to shop this. And people don't have the time these days to do that kind of shopping. So another thing we pointed out at that juncture was used car lots. Where they are set up, they have all the pickup trucks in one location and all the sedans and all the sports cars, because that's the way people want to shop.
Well, again, though, I'm going to use your words, though, because change is the hardest thing. And as you say, true change must start at the top with concrete, visible action. But only when the tone at the top is visible and consistent can change gain traction. And that's, again, one of the missions you've had, was to show how setting that tone at the top could really make the ball roll.
Yes, and the domestic car manufacturers had that situation where they were so large, they couldn't really pull it together. They tried hard, even the top executives, but it was difficult. But now that we've gone through two of the major ones going through bankruptcy, it's changed who's running the operations, and it's getting rid of a lot of the structure that has been around since World War II that makes things very difficult to accomplish a uniform automobile.
Wow, Dave, you are a wealth of an industry and then some, and I want to end our conversation with your words. If it is true, actually the words from your book, because I know you would be too humble to say this about yourself. If it is true that the automobile is the machine that changed the world, then it is equally true that J.D. Power and Associates is one company that helped change the machine for the better. Thank you, Dave, so much for changing things for the better.
Thank you, Barry.
It's my pleasure, and thank you guys for joining us. Now, before Dave leaves, I'd like to leave you with these words from Power. If there is any lesson from my career that can help a business survive and thrive in today's environment, it is to keep adapting and adjusting as fast as possible, because change is coming more rapidly than ever. I'm Barry Kibrick. Change is coming as fast as ever, and if you don't keep up between those successes and those failures, you're going to have to find the answer. And when you do, you'll not only survive, but you'll thrive. Thank you, sir. My pleasure.
you.